All right, let's dive right into this explainer. If you've ever felt like your environmental management system audits are just, endless bureaucratic box ticking, you are absolutely in the right place. Today, we're focusing on designing individual risk-based audit plans that really prioritize those high-impact EMS clauses. We're going to talk about how to take those plans and develop systematic clause-referenced field checklists that actually mean something. We're transforming these audits from basic compliance checks into seriously powerful risk-busting tools.
We have a fantastic roadmap for you today. We'll start with the risk-based audit, move right into targeting high-impact clauses, look at integrating risk into planning, build some clause-referenced audit checklists, and wrap up with systematic field evidence collection.
Okay, Section 1, the risk-based audit.
So I want to kick things off with a slightly provocative question to get our gears turning. Do you think every single clause in the standard deserves the exact same amount of your precious audit time? Traditionally, a lot of auditors try to cover everything equally. But if we are truly following a risk-based approach, the answer is a massive, resounding no. Trying to treat everything equally actually waters down the entire effectiveness of your audit.
Think about it like this. A standard audit just spreads time evenly across all the clauses. It treats all operational areas exactly the same. But a risk-based audit? It intentionally places your time and resources exactly where the environmental stakes are the highest. It allocates time disproportionately based on risk exposure and operational complexity. I mean, you wouldn't spend the same amount of time auditing a minor administrative desk as you would a highly complex chemical processing line, right?
Moving on to Section 2, targeting high-impact clauses.
If we aren't going to audit everything equally, we need a bulletproof way to identify our prime targets. The source material calls these high-impact EMS clauses. Basically, these are the specific clauses that most significantly influence environmental outcomes, legal compliance, and operational reliability. But here is the absolute most important takeaway. A high-impact clause isn't a static, set-in-stone thing. It's a moving target. It changes entirely based on the unique environmental stakes of your specific organization. What is incredibly high impact for one facility might be totally low impact for another.
Let's look at how industry context totally dictates this focus. If you're looking at a chemical manufacturing plant, that demands heavy scrutiny on Clause 8, specifically operational controls around things like hazardous waste and emissions. But switch gears to a logistics company, and that focus shifts to the life cycle perspective within Clause 8, specifically looking at fleet fuel consumption and outsourced transit. Meanwhile, a metal finishing facility might really need to elevate Clause 9 to strictly monitor their wastewater treatment and sludge disposal. It's all about context.
So how do you find your own high-impact targets? You look for the red flags. Does a specific area pose severe environmental consequences, like a major pollution risk? Is there intense regulatory scrutiny, or maybe a really high probability of an incident? Also, you have to look at your history. If you have repeated non-conformities in one area, it needs more audit time for sure. And finally, highly complex or automated systems inherently elevate a clause's impact just because it's so much harder to detect when those systems fail.
That brings us to Section 3, integrating risk into planning.
Identifying your risks is really only half the battle. We have to translate that awareness directly into our scheduling, our scoping, and who we select to actually do the auditing. The standard practically begs for your audit plan to be a dynamic tool, one that adapts to evolving regulations, new technologies, and shifting conditions. It's deeply tied to the Plan, Do, Check, Act cycle. We're absolutely not just here to verify basic conformity. We're trying to actively drive continual improvement by keeping our audits aimed right at the most pressing vulnerabilities.
To perfectly scale your audit duration and sample size, there's a really solid 4-step process. First, evaluate the severity of your environmental aspects. Second, analyze those compliance obligations because, let's face it, non-compliance can mean severe penalties. Third, assess operational complexity. And fourth, review your historical incident data to zero in on exactly where past weaknesses have surfaced.
When you do this right, your audit plan deliberately skews your resources toward the critical areas. Picture your total audit time. You might find yourself spending a massive 60% of that time directly on the facility floor evaluating high-risk operations and emissions controls, maybe 30% on medium-risk environmental controls and monitoring, and only a tiny 10% reviewing low-risk administrative processes. That kind of disproportionate allocation is the true hallmark of an effective modern audit.
All right, let's head into Section 4, clause-referenced audit checklists.
So how do we take all these high-level standard clauses and turn them into things we can actually use out in the field? There's a brilliant quote from the source material that says these checklists provide a logical bridge between ISO 14001:2026 requirements and observable organizational practices. It reframes the checklist from just a boring bureaucratic form into a vital interpretive tool. It translates complex standard speak into something you can actually see with your own eyes.
The benefits of doing this are huge. Using a structured clause reference checklist makes your audit perfectly transparent, highly repeatable, and completely defensible. First off, it prevents you from accidentally missing key evidence. It translates incredibly dense text into crystal clear prompts. It ensures that if two different auditors visit the exact same site, they're evaluating things consistently. And crucially, it guarantees traceability. You can prove exactly how your field findings tie directly back to specific clauses.
Let's look at how you actually do this translation. Take Clause 8.1 on operation. Instead of vaguely asking something like, is Clause 8.1 implemented, your checklist prompt should ask a real question. Are hazardous and non-hazardous wastes physically segregated? And your expected field evidence? Direct observation of labeled waste containers. Boom. It takes the abstract and makes it completely concrete and actionable.
And that leads us to our final section, Section 5, Systematic Field Evidence Collection. Having a great checklist is awesome, but how we gather the evidence is what determines if our audit is actually reliable. The absolute key here is the triangulation of evidence. This means using observation to witness real-world conditions, interviews to gauge actual employee competence and awareness, and document review to verify the structural integrity of their procedures. You use all three of these together to build an unbreakable web of proof.
Let's compare document review and observation for a second. You might have a beautifully written, perfectly formatted waste segregation procedure just sitting proudly on a shelf. A document review confirms it exists. Great, but only direct observation out there on the factory floor will reveal if the actual waste bins are all mixed up. If we only relied on the paperwork, we'd pass an organization that is literally failing in real life.
By weaving these three techniques together, you basically eliminate assumptions entirely. True audit reliability happens only when observation, interviews, and document review all converge to tell the exact same story. If the written procedure says one thing, the floor operator tells you another, and your own eyes show you a third, well, you've just uncovered a critical gap in the environmental management system that needs immediate corrective action.
So I'll leave you with this final thought to really ponder as you design your next audit plan. Does your current checklist merely verify paperwork? Or does it actually empower you to uncover the real operational reality of your organization's environmental impact? By applying risk-based planning and these clause reference checklists, you can transform your audits into a true strategic driver of sustainability. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and we will see you next time.